All right, moving on to the first session. Marketing the selfie generation. So how do you market to a selfie generation? We've got some great minds here, and I'm going to be calling out their names. Dr. Alok Bhardwaj, Executive Vice President of Canon, responsible for business operations in India, spread across 5 divisions in consumer, business, government, and commercial segments. Industry veteran with 30 years experience, and he's been on the top of the 100 global influencers, a list created by venturesource.com in 2012. He was conferred an honorary doctorate in 2011 to signify his leadership and contribution to the industry, and he's been recognized as the best CMO of the year by CMO Council of the US of A, the most influential person in photography, and the Pride of the Industry Award for Organization Leadership, Corporate Executive of the Year, Most Favorite Country Manager, and Most Dynamic Marketing Professional in Power Brand Hall of Fame. Yes, that deserves another loud round of applause. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vineet Taneja, Country Head IT and Mobile, Samsung India Electronics Limited. Mr. Taneja is responsible for successful implementation of sales, distribution, and marketing activities of Samsung Mobile and IT in India. He's an industry veteran again, 25 years of experience in leadership roles, leading companies, and has an admirable track record of successfully managing core competencies of people, business, and operators. Thank you. Welcome. Ms. Anisha Motwani, Director and Head Marketing, Direct Sales and E-Commerce, Max Life Insurance. Of course, another career spanning 25 years, has handled several critical roles and assignments across leading organizations. Memorable campaigns include Mint with a Hole, Nestle Polo way back in the early 90s, to the more recent Aapke Sache advisor for Max Life Insurance, voted as one of the 50 most powerful women in Indian business by Business Today for 3 consecutive years, conferred Women at Work Leadership Award in 2011 by Asian Confederation of Business, recognized with Udyog Ratan by Institute of Economic Studies, and awarded with multiple marketing and corporate excellence recognitions. Welcome, Ms. Motwani. I guess the stage is all set, and it's going to be a free-flowing conversation. Of course, you all have discussed the points that you would like to bring out.
Okay, so let's start. Interestingly, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at some very, very broad numbers, and we are talking about the topic of marketing to selfie generation, from an India's perspective, if we say that number of people who are 81 born or later, late 80s to mid 90s, yeah, 85 to 95. So it will run into several millions, isn't it? Yeah, some 300, 400 million people. 340 million people. So it's a large number, which naturally is an important part of our audience. So the point of the discussion today about particularly a phenomena called selfie phenomena is a very, very relevant topic. So let me just start by getting some data from Vineet, and then we can talk.
So when I was coming for this, and as always, you know, born and, well, educated as an engineer, and then realize that it was a mistake, and then you do an MBA, and then you realize that numbers are very important, right? So that part of your education doesn't ever go away. So I was looking at some interesting numbers. Firstly, when I saw the topic, the selfie generation, the one thing that really, the most obvious and the instinctive thing that people think of is, oh, this must be about, nice way of saying youth. And you couldn't be more wrong. And I'll just use some data points to kind of say why this could be wrong. Firstly, like we just heard that, we had the president of one of the most influential nations in the world taking a selfie with a woman. And this morning, I'm sure many of us received a WhatsApp or a Facebook update which had a potential leader of another influential nation of the world doing a selfie that he had just voted. Did many of you see that? And you probably know who I'm talking about, right? No? Okay. Anyway, so we had Namo also doing a selfie this morning, just in case you hadn't guessed. But now some figures. There are 90 million people in India who possess a smartphone, okay? And 75% of these smartphones are connected to a data network. That means a lot of people who buy a smartphone but use it as a regular phone don't even use mobile network to connect to it. So they just use it for, well, just showing that they have a smartphone. Then almost 60% of these smartphones actually have a front camera, only 60%. So take 90 million, 75% of that roughly is 70 million that are connected, and roughly 60% of that, that means 40 million, have a front camera. Yeah? Now that is just 4 crore people. Yeah? Now only 4 crore people can generate a selfie, of course barring people who would use a digital camera to create a selfie. I'm just assuming that most selfies are created out of a smartphone. And I know Alok will argue that that's not the case, but I would say by and large it's smartphones. Now, so that's one figure, so keep that aside. In your mind, that 4 crore people, or 40 million people. Just one more statistic on that 40 million. By and large, our research shows 25% of those are people in the age group of 15 to 24, the real youth. Yeah? Which means that only 10 million youth in this country can generate a selfie. So I'm sure we are not talking about that generation, and we are really talking about a much larger generation of people, or a much larger segment of the population that we are talking about here. So firstly, as a statistician, I would say that, yes, 40 million people is the target that we're talking about. So irrespective of the age, we are really talking about people who can generate a selfie. Some more statistics, and we all heard Facebook talk about that they've now touched 100 million people in India, so 100 million users in India. 85 million of those people use Facebook or access Facebook on their mobile phones. Facebook also then published some further data on this to say that almost 60% of this 85 million actually are in the age bracket of, again, roughly different, but let's say 13 to 25. Okay? So interestingly, that number again comes to roughly 40 million, 45 million. But these are two different audiences, so to speak of. So there are 40 million of that age bracket that access Facebook, and that is a surrogate, so to speak, of sharing a selfie. WhatsApp is also around 40 million, so let's say this is a subset. So Facebook is, if you might say, the universe as a platform for sharing selfies. So 40 million there, but only 10 million who can generate a selfie. So you're really talking about a very narrow audience that we're talking about, which is able to generate a selfie. So when we were talking about selfies, it came out very clearly from the numbers that we are really talking about an audience which is beyond, firstly, this very narrow definition that all of you might have in your mind about the youth that we are talking about here. And Anisha had a very interesting point of view on how this could be not just about behavior, but actually about, you know, psychology and why do people generate a selfie in the first place.
So let's talk about why this selfie, since we're doing a conversation. Why is this selfie such a big phenomenon? Is it an age-related? Is it a phenomena of today's mankind? What exactly is it? Then we're going to talk about how do we take opportunity, etc.
So that's exactly the point. While the numbers might be looking small, as a behavior, this behavior, if it gets enabled, you know, by technology, by devices, is a very natural human behavior. Okay? To see, to love yourself. You know, there is this whole debate that I was just reading up about. Is selfie equal to narcissism, or is it equal to just loving yourself? You know, where does it, you know, earlier days we used to have this whole thing about being on page 3 and being a social flippant, had those kind of negative connotations around it. And somehow those are similar connotations that today you seem to be, you know, tending towards when you talk about selfies. Selfies is about narcissism, it's about self-indulgence, these people are self-absorbed, they are so into themselves. I would think that actually that's not so true. It is a human behavior. If you love yourself, the world will love you is something that we've heard generations down. People say if the tree doesn't nourish itself, how will it bear fruit? So it is, you know, for years.
Anisha, I have a, you know, thinking about what you're just saying. when I look at my kids and youngsters in general, that they actually do not publish all the selfies they take actually.
Absolutely.
They actually circulate, they share their selfies in a very, very close group.
So it's all, so exactly what you're saying makes this point even stronger. Is it about self-exploration? Is it that they're discovering themselves? Is it about creating their own self-identity? And I would think that's what youngsters are attempting to do. Earlier, when you took photographs, they were so staged, they were so managed. You had that picture-perfect smile, you had that stiff look on your face, and that's how you would pose for the photograph, okay? Somebody else would do it for you. Today, when you're actually taking your own pictures, you're exposing yourself. It's somewhere bringing a lot of reality into our own selves. The images that you...
Plus it is becoming dynamic. You talk about your moods, huh?
Yeah,
so
moods,
I post a different picture in the morning, I post a different picture in the evening.
Absolutely. You are actually making yourself more exposed. You are actually creating a whole lot of authenticity and transparency in the way you bring out. So at least selfies are making people look real as against staged. Earlier, everything used to be, you know, let me create a kind of a picture-perfect shot. Today, when people are indulging, there are ugly selfies that have come about being. What are you doing? You're exposing yourself, you know. And is that, why are they doing that, you know? Is it because they want to discover themselves? Is it that they're actually in a journey to deep dive and say, who am I? What am I all about? Is it also about some bit of confidence that they have in their own selves? To I am what I am, accept me for that.
Isn't it a conversation? Isn't it? So there are two kinds of selfies. Huh? One selfie is that it's a self-promotion, celebrity selfies. Yeah. Why would Narendra Modi today take a picture and put it? Yeah. Oh, he has an agenda of people knowing about it.
Marketing comes into play. You know, anytime there is a phenomena, of course, marketeers want to leverage it.
Politicians
today are better.
So this is one purpose of selfie. The second purpose of selfie, obviously, what seems to be emerging is you want a conversation. So you put it, and conversation you want it amongst your friends, your relatives. So new dress, and you want a comment. Yes. Imagine a selfie which does not attract a single comment. Yes. It's a bad selfie.
It's a bad selfie.
So a good selfie is that invites comments in whichever way. Yes. And then you further on make more, and it goes on, and it keeps you busy. Yeah. You feel depressed, put a selfie on. I think it's from a medical angle, doctors would probably prescribe selfie more and more to people who feel depressed. So it's a great way of conversation.
No, but it can depress you. Like my daughter told me that, you know what, I took this selfie, only 99 likes. Last time I got 120.
Yeah. So now it is competition, huh? How many likes? But you see, other than this selfie, or other than this conversation and celebrity agenda or whatever you call it, then there is another thing, and now that's a perspective of Canon coming in. So don't accuse me of bringing that in, but it's an important part of this discussion, which I have begun to call it as not selfie but LC. Now what is LC? LC is you now begin a conversation on somebody else's picture. So a picture of nature, picture of any beautiful thing that you've done. So you are admiring beauty, you are admiring something or some observation.
You'll be charged for advertising, okay?
That is what?
If you keep talking about Canon, you'll be charged for advertising by Businessworld.
So no Canon. Okay, so that's the other part of, so selfie to my mind is a little bit restrictive of, or the purpose of it is conversations and self-promotion. Yeah. That's how I feel.
Yeah. You know, networking, of course, selfies like to be liked, you know. I mean, that's exactly this thing, you know, you want other people to endorse you. They do seek endorsements. They do seek a kind of a validation of themselves. And to that extent, while on one side they are self-confident, but there is that bit of vulnerability also that is there. And that vulnerability gets exposed when you seek external validation through likes and through conversations and through the kind of dialogues that you generate. Now that's the dilemma of this generation. This generation is born into an era of plenty. They have too many choices, they have too much at this thing that leads to some bit of confusion in their minds. And when you are confused, you seek some bit of endorsement, you seek some bit of validation, you seek some bit of opinions. And that is what actually makes you feel a little of, you know, that cocky show that I want to project. But deep inside, I would much rather have 5 more people, you know, say, give me that confidence to boost mine, to make me feel that I'm on the right track. I think that's the nice balance that this generation is all about.
So Anisha, you know, from my perspective, being in the industry, selfies is all about saying, okay, I must enable more and more people to take better selfies.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So in the industry that you come from, how do you see that being exploited by marketers, let's say, in, well, let's say, non-tech space, so to speak of?
So I think couple of things. Like I said, this endorsements and opinions is becoming very important. And most of these organizations are doing a lot of stuff in the digital and social space. How do I actually, in every communication that I do, how do I build in this whole thing of getting opinions, getting reviews, and broadcasting it real time when a purchase is happening? So that is how selfies, can be used. That's one very interesting way, in our kind of industry is using it. See, there are easier industries like fashion, personal care, skin care. It's a beautiful, this thing, you can crowdsource images of vulnerable, beautiful, diverse variety of skin types in the most beautiful expressions. So for some industries, it's very easy. Fashion, you can crowdsource fashion from the world through a selfie. But our kind of industries, also can use selfies by actually working upon this whole thing of having a kind of a review and an opinion. If you've secured your life, okay, and you actually selfie that, saying that I love my wife and that's why I have taken this. And if there are 7 people who like it and who endorse it, and you say that if you love your wife, this is what you should be doing, it actually creates influence and consideration. I mean, there are various other ways in which you can actually do it.
From a marketer point of view, really come to think of it, it's a great tool.
Yeah, it's a great tool, absolutely.
It is, marketers would thank Samsung and iPhone for having created this new phenomena through this device. And would probably even thank Oxford for creating selfie as a part of the dictionary word, because the people of the next generation are going to consider this word as an English word anyway. But from a marketeer standpoint, I think every single selfie or this whole phenomena is a great leveraging tool of engagement and emotional connection with the customer. Just about anything, I think we will foresee in the next 1 decade millions of innovative ideas in which brands will leverage this to a substantial extent. I don't know right now how they're going to leverage it, but we will have many cases like this.
So let me share one of the most, not very, one of the more mundane examples of how to use a selfie. So as you know, a company like ours has something like, I would say 5,000 to 6,000 feet on street who go shop to shop and actually sell our products. And we have something like 10,000 in-shop promoters. Now, managing a field force like as big as that is obviously a big challenge. Now, the good thing about smartphones is that they have a front camera which can enable them to take a selfie, but also it has a GPS tracking system, right? So it can tell you your location. Okay, so earlier what used to happen is the last generation used to carry these devices and input what they were doing, and the GPS would track where they were. But of course, Indians are very, very ingenious, and they started putting this, if I was going, there was no way to know it was not Alok, right? So we then have now started that all 10,000 of the in-shop promoters every morning need to stand in front of the shop that they're assigned and take a selfie. Now the selfie also it takes a selfie through an app, which also tracks their location. So every morning we know how many of our promoters actually reported, thanks to the photographs that they've taken and the selfies that they've uploaded. And we have a back end which actually matches the name and the actual picture of the person. Soon I'm sure that'll be done by a software program.
That's a great tool.
But so that's how we kind of monitor, and just imagine the same thing happening, let's say, insurance agents. So there are, like you said, we don't know, but I think the next generation of managers, and as we were saying, all of us need to unlearn and learn new things. The next generation of managers will treat it almost as a tool that the way you and I treated fax machines in the past, and say, look, this is what we can do with it even in the way we do business.
In fact, more things than this can happen now. So now the question could be, what next? So after selfie. So maybe can somebody create another version of selfie or some other thing that can engage people more? So the other day, Chitra was dropping that name, and I think that's another beautiful thing that I saw the other day, which is the drones. You understand that, which goes up, and Now there are legal issues right now involved because of security, etc., etc. But there is a talk happening in the industry about this part too. Besides this, I think there seems to be also a lot of opportunity for companies to integrate this concept of selfie through a front camera into many devices. Now, for example, I just showed you here, but there are many other examples that we are beginning to notice where this front camera to be a part of the device will become as an integral part of the device.
Yeah.
Also, I think, Alok, the minute you realize that, something has become a rage, currently the only limitation of selfie is that it's still at an arm's length. Okay, there's only so much you can do.
No, not really. So you can now have a selfie which can be triggered by a remote control.
Ah, that's exactly what I
You
was
can have an app on your phone. So you keep a phone at a distance, let's say 5 meters, stand in front of it, and use a remote control to actually generate the selfie.
Yeah. So maybe those apps will then become almost like, they come loaded and those become popular.
So sky is the limit in terms of how this can be done. Well, without any, threat to the people who are behind the lenses here, some of them, there could be a time when, journalists could just stand and take a selfie and, beam that up online. Without having a cameraman at the back trying to take the picture.
No, now you can do the remote. Those two cameramen are sitting, but standing behind the camera, there was no need. They could have been sitting here and using their smart Samsung Galaxy smartphone to operate that. But that's beyond selfie. I mean, since we're talking about the selfie part where you become as an important part of the subject of the picture which tells a story. I think this whole concept of storytelling to be becoming as the crux of tomorrow's center of conversation, dialoguing, even relationship. I don't know to what extent we have examples of selfie building relationship or selfie destroying relationship. But I think it will have a deeper impact on the social fabric to some extent.
On that one, I think clearly when selfies are exposing themselves, by posting those pictures, they are coming across as more real, more authentic and more transparent. Okay? Now that's one of the virtue of this generation and these people. So therefore, that's exactly what they are seeking from people they interact with. They are seeking a lot of transparency, they are seeking a lot of authenticity. And therefore, when we are talking about marketing, you see one of the newest age values of marketing today that brands are trying to imbibe is how do we come across as authentic and transparent? Anything that's a little shady and that's a little hidden, where they have to go 3 levels deep to get that information, that brand is getting rejected very easily. A brand that's transparent, that's saying it as it is the one that is actually getting accepted by these guys a lot faster. So you are absolutely right. The social fabric, from some of these trends do have an impact on how, the society starts behaving.
The other day I was reading about the selfie and then I think let's open some questions from there, but let me just narrate this. So there is this UK Cancer Institute or some European research cancer institute and there was selfie revolution started, change started, where people were putting selfie of theirs without a makeup. The concept, the cause is because a makeup can create cancer or has a little risk of that. And there were thousands of them that came up to show the beauty is not in the makeup. Bad for the makeup companies, the cosmetic companies, but that research, Cancer Research Institute got a very high rating. And at the end of it, when they interviewed them, they said that we did not initiate this at all. It was a user thought of an idea, and selfie created a kind of a huge connection with that brand without that brand even initiating it.